The Galactic Confederacy's scout vessel floated silently at the edge of the Sol system. The ship's smooth, silver hull reflected distant starlight as it maintained a careful distance from the third planet. Inside the observation deck, Officer Hyun stood before a large curved display screen showing detailed scans of Earth. "Interesting," Hyun said, his four slender claws tapping against the translucent control panel. The blue-green planet rotated slowly on the screen, cities lighting up the night side in scattered clusters. Admiral Dae moved to his side, her 6 amber eyes blinking in the methodical sequence that indicated thoughtful consideration. Unlike Hyun's sleek exoskeleton, Dae's body was covered in fine, iridescent scales that shifted colors with her movements. "Tell me what you see, officer," she said. "Primitive technology by our standards, Admiral. They've barely reached their own moon. Most of their spacecraft can't travel beyond their immediate orbital zone." Hyun manipulated the display, zooming in on several satellites and a small space station. Their orbital infrastructure is minimal, mostly communication devices, some scientific instruments. "And their defenses?" Dae asked. "Almost none in orbit. Ground-based missiles and aircraft, all using chemical propellants. Nothing that could threaten our ships." Hyun switched to a political map. "They divide their world into nearly 200 separate territories they call nations. No unified planetary government." Dae tilted her head, antenna quivering slightly, curious that they've survived this long. "What do they call themselves?" "They named their planet Earth. They call themselves humans." Admiral Dae studied the display for several more moments. Confederacy protocol was clear. Primitive worlds with no unified government were to be monitored but left alone until they developed sufficiently to join galactic society. The Confederacy had learned from painful experience that premature contact often led to cultural disruption or worse. "Prepare a full report and transmit it to command," Dae ordered. "Standard classification, pre-contact observation only." "Yes, Admiral," Hyun said, compiling the data. The transmission left their vessel in an encrypted burst, shooting across the void toward Confederacy space. Neither Hyun nor Dae noticed the small distortion field several light minutes away, a cloaked Krell surveillance drone that had been tracking Confederacy movements for months. The drone intercepted the transmission and immediately relayed it through a series of hidden communication buoys toward Krell territory. Within hours, the complete file on Earth arrived at Krell military headquarters on the fortress world of Scath. General Tai, Supreme Commander of the Krell expansion forces, reviewed the stolen data in his private war chamber. His massive form, nearly 3 meters tall, hunched over the holographic display. His black exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh lighting, the red markings of his rank prominently displayed across his thorax. "So the Confederacy has found another world," he rumbled to his assembled officers. Tai's mandibles clicked excitedly as he studied the images of Earth, and it seems particularly vulnerable. The other Krell officers chittered in anticipation. The Empire had been seeking new conquest opportunities after their recent setbacks against the Confederacy's defensive line. "No unified government," Tai observed, "which means no unified defense. Primitive weapons, no meaningful space presence." His compound eyes reflected the rotating image of Earth. "Perfect for our next expansion." The War Cabinet nodded in agreement. The Krell Empire had built itself on conquering worlds exactly like this, rich in resources but lacking the technology to resist. "We must move quickly, before the Confederacy establishes an observation post," said war strategist Bach. "Their ridiculous protocols would deny us this opportunity." "Agreed," Ta said. "We will not repeat our mistakes at Proxima Centauri. No overwhelming force that might attract Confederacy intervention." He zoomed in on Earth's continents. "A subtle approach. We'll establish a presence first, assess their weaknesses, then bring in the conquest fleet." "Who will lead the advance team?" asked Fleet Commander Rock. Ta considered for a moment. "Commander G," he finally said. "He has experience with primitive species. His record at Taw City was exemplary. The others nodded in approval. Commander Jai had successfully infiltrated and mapped the defenses of 3 pre-FTL civilizations, paving the way for quick conquests with minimal Krell casualties. 3 days later, Commander Jai stood on the bridge of the Krell vessel Silent Hunter as it prepared to depart from the Empire's forward base. Unlike the bulky warships that made up most of the Krell fleet, the Silent Hunter was sleek and designed to appear less threatening. Its weapons were concealed, its hull modified to reflect light in patterns that primitive species usually found less alarming. "Your mission is clear, Commander," General Ta said through the communication screen. "Establish contact under the guise of peaceful diplomacy. Map their defenses, identify their weaknesses, and prepare for the arrival of our conquest fleet. We estimate you'll need no more than 60 days. Jib bowed, his smaller but still imposing form showing the appropriate deference. "It will be done, General. The humans will not suspect our true purpose until it's too late." 2 weeks later, the Silent Hunter entered Earth orbit. Its appearance was carefully orchestrated, shields lowered, weapons bays closed, communication channels open and broadcasting simple greeting messages in various human languages that they had decoded from Earth's own transmissions. As expected, the humans reacted with a mixture of fear, wonder, and excitement. Their primitive detection systems had only noticed the Silent Hunter when it was already approaching Earth, giving them no time to prepare any meaningful response. Commander J gathered his crew on the main deck before they would send their first delegation to the surface. 20 of his best officers stood at attention, all of them veterans of previous infiltration missions. "Remember your training," J told them. "Appear benevolent at all times. Express interest in their culture. Show appropriate amazement at their primitive achievements. Study their weaknesses without being obvious." He paced before his officers, his claws clasped behind his back. "These humans have never encountered alien life. They will be curious, possibly afraid. Use that. Gain their trust." G turned to face a large display showing the blue planet below. "The conquest fleet will follow once we've completed our assessment. When it arrives, these humans must still believe we come as friends." His mandibles clicked in the Krell expression of deadly amusement. By then, it will be far too late for them. The Krell delegation established their primary base in what humans called Switzerland, chosen for its political neutrality and central location. From this hub, Commander G sent teams to every major population center on Earth. They moved with practiced efficiency, presenting themselves as peaceful ambassadors eager to learn about human culture. In truth, each team carefully documented Earth's weaknesses. Lieutenant Sun led the biological assessment team. In a secure room beneath their Cultural Exchange Center in Geneva, he examined the human anatomical models provided by eager medical professionals. "Look at this," Sun said to his assistants, poking a claw at the model's exposed chest cavity. "Their vital organs are protected by nothing but a thin cage of calcium-based material. No proper exoskeleton." He pinched the model's arm between his claws, the material giving way easily. "Their muscles attach directly to these fragile internal supports. Even our youngest warriors have twice this density." Sun activated his recording device. Assessment update. Human physical structure confirms initial scans. Their bodies are remarkably fragile. Average specimens stand 140 to 190 centimeters tall, weighing between 50 and 100 kilograms, approximately 1/3 our mass with less than 1/4 our physical strength. He rotated the model to examine its head. Most concerning to them should be their central processing organ. It floats in liquid, protected only by a thin bone casing. A single blow from a Krell warrior would be fatal. Sun's assistant nodded. "They compensate with protective gear in combat situations, but nothing that would withstand our standard weapons. They would be helpless in physical confrontation." Sun concluded, shutting off his recorder. The conquest should require minimal ground forces. Across the city, weapons specialist Q is reaching similar conclusions about human military technology. The humans had eagerly demonstrated their advanced weapon systems, believing they were impressing their alien visitors. Q sat in his quarters, filing his report while examining the schematics humans had proudly shared. Their most powerful weapons rely entirely on chemical explosives or basic atomic fission, he noted. Even their most advanced missiles use solid fuel propellants. The guidance systems are rudimentary. His assistant, analyzing data from Asian military demonstrations, added, their aircraft can barely achieve Mach 3, and only for short durations. None can operate beyond their atmosphere. These weapons might be effective against other humans, Hugh said, but they cannot penetrate our standard ship armor, much less our war vessels. He chuckled, a rasping sound. Their most powerful bombs would dissipate against our shields. Q completed his report with a recommendation. Minimal defensive preparations needed for the conquest fleet. Standard protocol for primitive species will be more than sufficient. Commander G received these reports with satisfaction. Everything confirmed what the Empire had predicted. Humans were physically weak and technologically primitive. Their conquest would bring glory to the Empire with minimal cost. Only Science Officer Yun seemed troubled. While others focused on human weaknesses, she found herself increasingly disturbed by what she discovered in Earth's historical archives. Late one night, she requested an urgent meeting with Commander J. When she arrived at his quarters, she found him reviewing deployment plans with his senior officers. "This had better be important, Science Officer," J said, not bothering to look up from the holographic display showing Earth's major military installations. "Commander, I believe we may be underestimating the humans," Yen said, her voice carrying enough conviction that J finally looked at her. "Explain," he said flatly. Yen activated her data tablet, projecting images of human conflicts throughout their history. "I've been studying their historical records. These humans have an unusual relationship with warfare. We're aware they fight among themselves," G said dismissively. "All primitive species do before achieving unity. It's not just that they fight, sir. It's how they fight, and how often." Displayed statistics that scrolled too quickly for the others to follow. In just the past 100 years, a fraction of their recorded history, they've engaged in 2 planet-wide conflicts and countless regional wars. Lieutenant Sun chittered with amusement. "This only confirms their weakness. They cannot even maintain peace among themselves." "That's just it," Yen persisted, her antenna twitching with urgency. Despite being divided into hundreds of political entities, despite having fundamental religious and ideological differences, they've developed thousands of ways to destroy each other. Their entire history is a continuous cycle of conflict and innovation driven by warfare. She displayed more images: trenches filled with dead, cities reduced to rubble, mushroom clouds rising over test sites. In less than 1 century, they advanced from primitive projectile weapons to thermonuclear devices. Their rate of military innovation under pressure is unprecedented in our records. Commander G waved a claw dismissively. "None of which can harm our fleet. Your concern is noted but irrelevant." "Commander," Yun said, lowering her voice, "what if they unite against us? Currently, they direct their aggression against each other. But if given a common enemy—" G made the clicking sound of Krell laughter. "Impossible. Their leaders can barely cooperate on planetary climate regulation. Their largest alliance barely functions during peacetime. They would never unite quickly enough to matter." "But sir—" "Enough." G's tone ended the discussion. "Your scientific curiosity is appreciated but misplaced. These humans will fall like all the others." He turned to his officers. "In fact, the reports confirm we can accelerate our timetable. Send word to General Ta. The conquest fleet should begin its approach. We will be ready in 30 days." Dawn left the meeting troubled. That night, she returned to the archives, digging deeper into human history. What she found only increased her concern. Unlike Krell war doctrine, which focused on overwhelming force, humans had developed countless ways to fight against superior enemies. Guerrilla warfare, asymmetric tactics, resistance networks. Throughout their history, even when completely outmatched, humans rarely surrendered entirely. More disturbing was their adaptability. Humans seemed to thrive under pressure, consistently developing new technologies and tactics when faced with existential threats. They're not just fragile creatures who fight each other, Ian whispered to herself as she reviewed accounts of human resistance movements. They're pursuit predators who never stop coming, and we're about to become their first united target. But her warnings went unheeded. Across Earth, the Krell continued their assessment, seeing only weakness where perhaps they should have recognized dangerous potential. And in orbit around a distant Krell fortress world, the Conquest fleet began its preparations for departure. The Arctic wind howled around the Novaya Zemlya research station as snowflakes danced in the dim polar light. Inside the main building, Dr. Kim adjusted her glasses and stared at the screen showing the approaching aircraft. It matched no known design, and its speed was impossible for human technology. "Are you sure it's not American?" asked her Russian colleague, Dr. Petrov. "Definitely not," Kim replied. "It's not anyone's." The strange craft landed less than a kilometer from the research station. The international team of 12 scientists watched in stunned silence as a ramp extended from the vessel and 3 tall figures emerged. Even from this distance, it was clear they weren't human. Dr. Kim grabbed the secure satellite phone. "We need to report this immediately." Before she could connect, the station's power cut out. Emergency lights flickered on as the temperature began to drop. "They've disabled our systems," Petrov said, checking the backup generator. "It's been fried somehow." Outside, the 3 Krell warriors approached the station. Lieutenant Han led the small team, mandibles clicking with anticipation. "Remember," Han told his warriors, "this is a simple intimidation operation. No need for excessive force. We just need to demonstrate our superiority and collect data on their response to direct confrontation." The Krell had selected this isolated research station precisely because it was remote, the perfect place to test human reactions without alerting major military forces. The plan was simple: enter the facility, demonstrate Krell technology and strength, collect samples, and leave. It would provide valuable data on human behavior under stress while posing minimal risk of wider exposure. Lieutenant Han never expected the human with the gray beard to emerge from the building pointing what looked like a flare gun. The red streak caught Han by surprise, striking his combat armor directly. While it didn't penetrate, the unexpected resistance triggered the Krell's combat reflexes. Han fired back with his stun weapon, dropping the human. "Inside, now," Han ordered, abandoning the careful plan. "Secure all humans." What followed shocked the Krell warriors. Rather than cowering in fear, the scientists fought back with surprising resourcefulness. They used fire extinguishers as weapons, blocked doorways with overturned equipment, and attacked from unexpected angles. Dr. Kim led 3 colleagues to the communications room, where they activated the emergency beacon, not just the standard distress signal, but the new global emergency system implemented after the Krell's arrival on Earth. Lieutenant Han finally cornered the humans in the main laboratory. "Enough," he roared in translated English. "Your resistance is pointless." Dr. Petrov, bleeding from a cut on his forehead, glared at the alien. "We're scientists, not soldiers. But we are still human." Han didn't understand the significance of those words, but he would soon. The Krell secured the facility and began collecting samples and data. Their shuttle departed 2 hours later, leaving behind 3 dead scientists and a functioning emergency beacon. What Lieutenant Han didn't realize was that Dr. Kim had hidden microcameras throughout the station. Everything had been recorded. The Krell's true appearance, their weapons, their brutality. And all of it was now transmitting to military commands worldwide. Commander G was in the middle of a diplomatic meeting with United Nations officials when the alert came through. He excused himself and returned to the Krell embassy, where he watched the footage with growing horror. "Who authorized this operation?" he demanded. His intelligence officer replied, "Lieutenant Han was conducting a standard intimidation assessment. It should have been routine. There was nothing routine about it, G snapped. The humans now have visual confirmation of our warriors in combat mode. The operation was supposed to remain completely secret. Jai switched to the global news feeds. Every channel on Earth was showing the same images. Krell warriors attacking scientists, firing weapons, collecting biological samples. More concerning was the human response. Jay had expected fear, perhaps even panicked military responses. Instead, he watched in disbelief as his surveillance feeds showed unprecedented coordination. Russian and American generals, bitter rivals for over a century, were planning joint defensive operations. Indian and Pakistani forces, enemies since their nations' births, were establishing shared defense protocols. European nations were pooling military resources. China was opening its weapons development facilities to international experts. Impossible, Jai whispered. His communications officer interrupted. Commander, we've lost contact with our observation posts in 3 major cities. Local authorities have surrounded them. G made a quick decision. Order all field teams to return to their vessels. We're shifting to Phase 2 immediately. The Krell began emergency evacuations worldwide, but humanity had already begun to move. Military units surrounded Krell facilities. Several diplomats were taken into protective custody. Weapons Specialist Q was captured when his team's shuttle was forced down over Brazil. Within hours, human engineers were examining his equipment. 3 days later, 3 Krell scout ships attempting to retrieve stranded teams were shot down by missiles that somehow penetrated their shields. Jay paced in his command center, his exoskeleton clicking against the metal floor. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. He had no choice but to contact General Ta. The general's massive form appeared on the communication screen, mandibles twitching with irritation. Report, Commander. We have encountered unexpected resistance, G said carefully. A premature confrontation has united the humans against us. Explain how primitive weapons have destroyed 3 of our vessels, Ta demanded. G's antenna drooped slightly. They've adapted our shield frequencies. They captured Specialist Q and somehow extracted our technology encryption patterns. Impossible. Their technology is too primitive. It was primitive, J corrected. They're adapting with remarkable speed. Their major powers have shared technologies they previously kept secret from each other. Tay's compound eyes narrowed. What are you suggesting, Commander? The conquest may require more resources than initially estimated. General Ta dismissed the concern with a wave of his claw. The conquest fleet has already entered the system. 300 vessels, 10,000 warriors. These humans cannot possibly resist such force. General, I recommend caution. Your recommendation is noted, Commander. Prepare for our arrival. Your failure to maintain secrecy will be addressed after the conquest is complete. The communication ended abruptly. G stared at the blank screen, then turned to Science Officer Yun, who had been silently observing. You were right, he admitted. Yun didn't take satisfaction in this. Sir, I've been monitoring their communications. They've already begun deploying countermeasures in orbit. Jay checked the scans himself. Sure enough, Earth's major powers had launched hundreds of new satellites. The readings were confusing. Some appeared to be simple metal objects. Others contained unusual energy signatures. 1 week later, the Krell invasion fleet arrived to find not a helpless planet, but a unified defense system unlike anything they had encountered before. Thousands of orbital mines floated in carefully plotted patterns around Earth. Missiles with modified guidance systems stood ready on every continent. Military forces from nations that had been enemies for generations stood side by side. General Ta's flagship led the massive armada toward Earth, expecting the humans to surrender at the mere sight of such overwhelming force. Instead, they were met with a message broadcast on Krell frequencies, using Krell encryption patterns. This is Earth Unified Defense. You are trespassing in sovereign space. Withdraw immediately or face consequences. Ta laughed and ordered the first wave to advance. The orbital mines detonated in sequence, creating an electromagnetic pulse wave that disabled the shields on 30 Krell vessels. Immediately after, hundreds of missiles launched from Earth, each somehow tracking the specific vulnerabilities of Krell ship design. As his officers reported mounting casualties, General Ta stared at the view screen in disbelief. Somehow, in mere days, these primitive humans had not only unified, but had repurposed Krell technology against them. The first battle for Earth had begun, and it was nothing like the easy conquest the Krell had expected. Day 15 of the invasion was when the Krell first realized something was fundamentally different about humans. Colonel 1, commanding the Krell's Northern Assault Force, hadn't slept in 3 days. His exoskeleton ached, his eyes burned, and his reactions were slowing dangerously. He stared at the battlefield displays, showing the human forces pushing relentlessly against his lines. They had been attacking continuously for 72 hours. When one human unit pulled back, another immediately took its place. "This is impossible," one muttered, his mandibles clicking with exhaustion. "Send the 4th Reserve Unit to Sector 7. "Sir," his aide responded, "the 4th Reserves have been engaged for 20 hours. They need rest." "And the humans?" one asked. "Still attacking. They've rotated in fresh troops." One slammed his claw against the command console. "How? This is their 3rd rotation. Where are they getting these forces?" He activated the battle channel, connecting to the 5 other regional commanders. "We need reinforcements in the Northern Theater," he began, but was cut off by Commander Pack from the Desert Front. "We can't help you," Pack chittered frantically. "They never sleep. We rotate our forces, but they just keep coming." Similar reports flooded in from all fronts. The Krell military operated on a standard cycle, 16 hours of combat followed by 8 hours of mandatory rest. Their biology demanded it, but the humans seemed to fight endlessly. Aboard the command ship, Science Officer Yun rushed into Commander G's strategy room, clutching her data tablet. Her research team had been working nonstop to understand the unexpected human resistance. "Commander, I found something critical," she said, bypassing all formalities. Jai looked up from the holographic battle map showing Krell positions retreating on multiple fronts. "Speak quickly, Science Officer." Yun displayed biological scans of human physiology alongside comparison data. "Humans evolved as pursuit predators," she explained. "Unlike most galactic species, they didn't evolve to ambush or overwhelm prey with strength. They hunted by chasing animals to exhaustion." Ji's antenna twitched with interest. "Explain." "Their bodies are designed for endurance," Yun continued. "They can sustain physical activity longer than any galactic species we've encountered. They have efficient cooling systems. They release heat through their skin by producing water. Their joints can withstand repetitive motion for days." She brought up video of human hunters from primitive tribes still practicing ancient techniques. "Look at this. They literally chase prey until it collapses from exhaustion, sometimes for days." Jai watched silently as the implications became clear. The Krell, like most advanced species, had evolved as ambush predators, powerful but designed for short bursts of activity. "That's not all," Yun said. "Their unusual sleeping patterns. They can operate with minimal rest by allowing small groups to sleep while others remain alert, and they've developed chemical stimulants that can keep them functioning for days." "Why wasn't this in your initial reports?" Ji demanded. "I didn't understand the significance," Yun admitted. "On their world, this trait seemed unremarkable. Only in combat against us does its importance become clear." A communication alert interrupted them. General Tay's massive form appeared on the screen, his normally immaculate exoskeleton now dented from a recent attack on his command vessel. "Commander G, explain why we are losing ground on all fronts," Ta roared. Jai straightened. "General, we've discovered critical information about human physiology." "I don't want excuses," Tai interrupted. "I want results. Our landing zones are under constant attack. Our supply lines are being disrupted by these primitives. They're not as primitive as we thought, G said firmly. They've adapted faster than any species we've encountered. As if to emphasize his point, alarms blared throughout the command ship. Multiple missile launches detected, announced the defense officer. Origin: human submarines. The Krell had thought they'd neutralize Earth's naval threat days ago. Somehow, the humans had kept vessels hidden and operational. Deploy countermeasures, Jai ordered. Unable to track incoming projectiles, the officer replied with increasing panic. They're using a modulation pattern we haven't encountered before. The ship shuddered as 2 missiles struck. The shields held, but power fluctuated throughout the vessel. They're using our own tactics against us, Jai reported to General Tai as damage reports flooded in. But improved. They study each engagement and adapt immediately. In the southern hemisphere, a Krell stronghold established in what humans called Australia was overrun by a combined force of troops from countries that, according to Krell intelligence, had been bitter enemies just weeks earlier. Colonel Han, before his position was overwhelmed, transmitted his final report. They attack from directions we don't expect. They use our own weapons against us. The humans from this region fight differently than those from other territories. Each group brings unique tactics, and they share knowledge instantly. The most devastating human adaptation came 3 weeks into the conflict. The Krell fleet had gathered in a defensive formation above Earth's northern hemisphere, concentrating their forces to break through the increasingly effective human defenses. Human space agencies launched what appeared to be primitive rockets, easy targets for Krell interceptors. Most were destroyed, but 3 reached unusual altitudes before detonating. The Krell officers initially laughed at what seemed like a failed attack. Then their sensors went dark as electromagnetic pulses from high-altitude nuclear detonations washed over their formation. In the brief window of vulnerability, hundreds of conventional missiles struck the fleet. 27 ships were destroyed before the Krell could restore their defenses. They're using nuclear weapons in space, reported the shocked fleet commander. Our systems have no specific defenses against such crude atomic weapons. The Krell had abandoned nuclear technology centuries ago, developing more elegant energy weapons. They had never considered that a primitive species would use such destructive forces in their own orbital space. In his command center, G watched as another Krell position fell to human forces. Reports from all fronts showed the same pattern. Human forces adapting, learning, and exploiting every weakness they discovered. Science Officer Yun had expanded her research team, now working directly with human scientists who had been captured but then offered to cooperate. Commander, she reported, there's something else you should understand about humans. Their entire military history is based on asymmetric warfare. Even when fighting each other, they constantly develop tactics for weaker forces to defeat stronger ones. Jai stared at the battle map, watching as Krell positions blinked out one by one. His forces were still technologically superior, still physically stronger. But they were exhausted, while the humans seemed to grow more effective with each passing day. He opened a private channel to General Ta. General, we need to reconsider our approach, he said carefully. We cannot win a war of attrition against them. Their endurance exceeds ours by orders of magnitude. For once, General Ta had no immediate rebuke. The massive Krell leader simply stared through the communication screen, his compound eyes reflecting the damage reports flooding his own command center. Continue fighting, Ta finally ordered, but his voice lacked conviction. The Empire does not retreat. Jai closed the channel and turned to his officers. He knew then that the conquest of Earth, which had seemed so certain just weeks ago, was becoming increasingly impossible. The Krell Empire had never known defeat. For 12 generations, they had expanded across the stars, conquering or absorbing every civilization they encountered, until Earth. General Ta stood before the Imperial Council, his once proud posture now bent with shame. His magnificent battle armor was gone, replaced by the simple gray covering of a disgraced commander. Explain this failure, demanded the Emperor, his massive form looming over the chamber. The humans, Ta began, mandibles clicking nervously, were not what they appeared to be. The data screens displayed the humiliating statistics: 127 ships lost, over 40,000 warriors dead or captured. The first major defeat in modern Krell history. They seemed weak and divided, Ta continued. Our initial assessments showed primitive technology, fragile bodies, and fractured political systems. Yet they defeated our fleet, the Emperor stated flatly. They united with unprecedented speed. They adapted our own technology against us. And Ta hesitated, they simply never stopped fighting. While Tai faced disgrace on the Krell homeworld, Commander G found himself in a situation no Krell warrior had ever experienced: captivity. The holding facility was surprisingly comfortable. The humans had constructed it specifically to accommodate Krell biology, with appropriate atmospheric conditions and food. G sat across from 3 human generals, American, Chinese, and Russian, who had once commanded armies against each other. "We need to understand your propulsion systems," said General Chen. "Your cooperation will be remembered when peace terms are discussed." Jai had spent his entire career studying how to defeat enemies, not help them. Yet here he was, explaining Krell shield harmonics to creatures he had once considered prey. "Your adaptation speed is remarkable," Jai admitted as he corrected a human engineer's diagram. "It took my species centuries to develop this technology." General Williams nodded. "Necessity is the mother of invention. We've had plenty of necessity lately." Across the planet, in what humans called Switzerland, Science Officer Yun had chosen a different path. Upon recognizing the inevitability of Krell defeat, she had surrendered herself and her research team to human authorities. Rather than hiding information, she had shared everything: Krell biology, technology, and her insights into human potential. The United Nations Hall fell silent as unfinished her presentation. Representatives from every nation watched as this alien scientist explained humanity to itself. "Your species appears weak because you choose to be," she said, her translator converting her clicks and whistles into dozens of human languages simultaneously. "You have the capacity for terrible violence, but prefer cooperation." She displayed brain scans from both species. The Krell evolved as solitary hunters who banded together only for conquest. You evolved as pack hunters who developed complex social bonds. When threatened as a group, you fight with coordinated ferocity we cannot match. In the audience, Dr. Kim, now recovered from injuries sustained during the first Krell attack, nodded in recognition. Her small act of resistance at the Arctic Research Station had helped spark humanity's unified response. 6 months after the Krell retreat, a new vessel entered Earth orbit. Unlike the aggressive shapes of Krell warships, this one was smooth and elegantly designed. It carried Admiral Dai and representatives of the Galactic Confederacy. The Confederacy Council had watched the human-Krell conflict with growing concern. What had begun as a standard imperial expansion by the Krell had revealed a previously underestimated species. The Council needed to reassess. In the newly constructed Planetary Diplomatic Center, Admiral Dai faced the United Earth Council, a governing body that hadn't existed when she first scanned the planet. "The Confederacy extends formal recognition to Earth as a sovereign world," Dai announced, her 6 eyes blinking in the ceremonial pattern of respect. "We wish to establish peaceful relations." Secretary General Okafor, elected to represent humanity to the stars, responded firmly. "We accept your recognition, but we have conditions." Dai's antenna twitched with surprise. Newly discovered species typically accepted Confederacy protection gratefully. "Earth demands representation on the Confederacy Council," Okafor continued, "equal to any other member. We also require access to Confederacy technology databases and trade networks." These were unprecedented demands from a pre-FTL civilization. Yet the humans had leverage: dozens of captured Krell ships and weapons, plus demonstrated military capability that had shocked the galaxy. "The Council will consider your requests," Dai said carefully. There's more, Okafor added. We want guarantees against any future aggressive actions by the Krell or others, and we want star charts showing all nearby systems. Admiral Day recognized the position she was in. The Confederacy had failed in its responsibility to protect developing worlds from Krell expansion. Now this newly united humanity was negotiating from a position of surprising strength. 3 weeks later, the Confederacy Council, meeting in emergency session, voted to accept Earth's terms. For the first time in Confederacy history, a planet that couldn't yet reach nearby stars on its own was granted full membership status. In the Confederacy archives, Earth's classification was immediately changed from defenseless to extremely dangerous. Approach with caution. As human engineers began incorporating salvaged alien technology into their own designs, the first Earth-built starship took shape in orbit. Named Unity, it contained technological contributions from nations that had been enemies just months earlier. Admiral Day, assigned as permanent liaison to Earth, watched the construction with mixed feelings. She had been the first to discover this world, filing the report that had inadvertently led to the Krell invasion attempt. We judged them by their appearance, not their potential, she told her aide as they observed the humans working alongside Confederacy technical advisors. A mistake no one will make again. The aide's antenna dipped respectfully. Do you think they'll seek revenge against the Krell? Dag considered this. She had spent enough time with humans now to understand something fundamental about them. No, she finally said. That's what makes them truly dangerous. They fight ferociously when threatened, but prefer peace when possible. Had the Krell simply approached them honestly, humans would likely have welcomed them as friends. 1 year after the failed invasion, humans made their first official appearance at the Confederacy Council. Their delegation included scientists, diplomats, and military officers from every major Earth culture. Among their advisors were Commander Jean and Science Officer Eon, both granted asylum after the war. As the human representatives took their place among species that had traveled the stars for millennia, a new phrase began circulating through galactic communication channels. It would eventually become a standard warning in every ship's database. Earth, home to beings who appear weak by choice, but have never forgotten how to be strong. Approach with respect. The end.